Hello and welcome back. Well, as Syria looks set to embark on mediation efforts between rival Palestinian groups Fatah and Hamas, there has been talk of Egypt hosting inter-Palestinian talks. The Palestinian President, Mahmoud Abbas, told Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak that Cairo should be at the center of joint Arab efforts to end the Palestinian internal crisis. That came after he'd called for dialogue with Hamas. The talks, if they are to take place, would draw up mechanisms to implement an initiative struck in February by another Arab country, Yemen. This initiative, which was approved by both Fatah and Hamas, aimed at ending Hamas control of the Gaza Strip and rebuilding the police and security forces. To talk about this further are our guests in Dusseldorf, Dr. JAMAL NAZZAL, in Damascus, MARWAN KABALAN, and in Cairo, the political analyst NABIL ZAKI. Mr. ZAKI, where do these Syrian intervention efforts leave Egypt's role as regional mediator? Is Egypt being sidelined? No,
not sidelined. Egypt was encouraged by making this agreement of ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. And till now it's not bad, it's working. It is encouraged by that to try to make a reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas to end this situation, this abnormal situation in Gaza. There are other factors here which are very important. First of all, there are negotiations between Syria and Israel. There are negotiations between Mahmoud Abbas and Israel, which will continue in the United States shortly. At the same time, we are waiting for a new president in the United States, and there are the dangers of a new war in the region. That is, all such reasons are pushing Egypt to make greater effort to try at least to fulfill something before the end of the year, because we have a promise, even by words, from the American side that there must be movement, there must be some achievement before the end of the year, before the end of the presidency of Mr. Bush.
Okay, Dr. NAZZAL, sorry, excuse me interrupting. If I can bring Dr. NAZZAL in there. I mean, some feel that Cairo's role is often there to persuade the Palestinians to accept Israel's needs. What's your comment?
Not necessarily. We have a very fruitful and very warm, peaceful, friendly relations to Egypt. Egypt is the big brother of the Arab states, and the process of dialogue between ourselves and Egypt has always been a constructive one, and the president our president frequently visits this friendly country. But really, I have to disagree with the notion that President Abbas is now in Syria to have them negotiate with Hamas on his behalf. This is not the case. President Abbas is in Syria because Syria at the moment is the chairman of the Arab Summit. Syrians, as my friend has said, is involved in negotiations with Israel. Mr. Abbas himself is involved in negotiations with Israel. So it is very important for the two men, for the two leaders, to come together and coordinate their efforts.
But Mr. KABALAN, if I can bring Mr. KABALAN in here, many say that Egypt is losing out to Syria, while Egypt dilly-dallies about getting the leaders together when Syria is now taking the initiative.
Well, I have to disagree. Actually, it's quite wrong. I mean, to see the Syrian mediation as sort of competition with other Arab countries such as Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Look, I mean, I don't think that any effort to bring the Palestinians together can succeed actually without a collective Arab. A coordinated Arab effort between Syria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, because look, for example, Syria has influence over Hamas, Saudi Arabia and Egypt has influence over the Palestinian Authority. So I think the three countries should come together and agree on, as I said, a coordinated effort in order to bring Hamas and Fatah, because without that agreement between the two parties, I don't see the peace process between the Israelis and Palestinians going anywhere. At the end of the day, Hamas represent an important part of the Palestinian people. Fatah represents an important part of the Palestinian people, and you can't go to a negotiation with Israel without having both parties actually agreeing on at least broad lines concerning the final settlement with the Israelis.
Okay, Mr. Zaki, one of the important issues here is prisoner release. I mean, is it possible to get Egypt to mediate in a deal involving the release of the prisoners when Cairo itself is holding 3 commanders of Hamas's military wing?
No, this problem with Hamas can be solved within hours, no problem about that. Egypt can continue making efforts to achieve the aim of releasing the Israeli prisoner, and it's okay. The problem is that Egypt has a sense of responsibility. I mean, they are here in Egypt, they are well aware that the continuity of this split between Fatah and Hamas is weakening the Palestinians in general and is weakening the Arabs in general as a part in the negotiations. That's why it must be solved as soon as possible. Because of many reasons, we are in bad need to regain or reunify the Palestinian ranks.
Okay, so Dr. NAZZAL, where to from here? We have so many disagreements still raging, so many diplomatic efforts underway. What needs to be done next?
A very simple thing. Hamas has to show signs of goodwill, credible signs of goodwill. They have to stop arresting people. They have to stop torturing people in their dungeons. They have to withdraw from the compound all the security installations of the Palestinian Authority. They have to evacuate and restore the dignity and the authority of the Palestinian ministries and the Palestinian governments. And Haniyeh himself, the former Prime Minister of Hamas, has to stop acting as a self-nominated president. He is not a president, but he is acting as if he is the president of the Republic of Gaza. This is not constructive. Someone has to tell him, you are fired, you have been sacked, be responsible, go home and wait for the national dialogue to start. This is the only way that is constructive and could be a good beginning for a dialogue. They have to show us signs of goodwill. They have tried to topple the president, complotted to kill him, and now they're not even ready to respond positively to his call for national dialogue. A month ago, President Abbas asked Hamas to give its response to the initiative which he launched a month ago. And as of now, we have not received a positive answer from Hamas.
Can I bring Dr. Zaki in very quickly, because we're about to end this program? I was going to end by asking if we're going to see a period of regional reconciliation, but it doesn't sound as though we're heading in that direction, does it?
No, I think that we are heading in that direction because of the circumstances I already explained. No time to have quarrels in this region, no time to have splits. Or we will lose, all of us will lose, including the Syrians, which are engaged in already in which they engaged already in negotiations.
It's a Sophian task, Mr. Zaki. Let's leave it there. Dr. NAZZAL, thank you for joining us, and you as well, Mr. KABALAN, and thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now, and thanks for watching.